Well, hello and welcome back to the Guitar in a Year, Beginner to Intermediate. I'm your instructor, Korey Hicks. Today we are on week number 41. I'm so pleased to hear that so many of you passed the performance exam we had last week on our major scales and our triads. If you're still struggling with that, don't worry, we're going to have a practicing session coming up very soon. And of course, you can also go over to Patreon. I'm going to be having some practicing sessions over there where I lead you through an entire day's worth of practice. So don't forget to check that out in the description below. Today, we're going to be hitting back into our modern method. We're going to be taking a look at a new duet. And this is going to be on page 14. So if you'll turn there with me, it should be on the screen as well. And I will have that PDF available for you over on Patreon. So we're starting off learning the first guitar part. And just like the other duets, what I would like for you to do is to record both sections. So you're going to record duet 1, and then you're going to record duet 2 separately. And then you can put them both together as a composite, and then you can hear yourself playing the entire piece. So a couple of the challenges that are going to be on this piece are going to be the lower ledger lines that are going to be in the second guitar part. So we'll take a look at that. But first, let's kind of go through without the metronome to start the first guitar. All right, so we start off with E, D, E, F, E, F, G, B, C, D, F, A, B, C, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. Stopping there at the end of measure 6, basically just going up a major scale. Then we're going up from D to F, that's a minor third, and we're descending. F, E, D, B, C. So for a little melody like that, I would just recommend playing it a few times. And then we make a jump. And we're going to be going down to the C. Now, this is where the lower ledger lines start in the first guitar part. I like to look at the lower ledger lines as F-A-C-E. We already know face from the spaces on the treble clef, but it also spells face from, if you look at that third note there, that F note, F-A-C, I'm looking for what C would be when I get there. We know what C is, that first ledger line below the staff, right? Middle C. So if I used F-A-C, I would end up on that line. Hopefully that makes sense. So if I know that that third note is F, and I know that that second note is a half step below the third note, it would by default be E. Hopefully that makes sense, but that's kind of the way that I used to think about this. So we're playing C, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, F, E, D, C, B. And then I'm going to grab that F note with my pinky here. You don't have to. I just think it's better economy of motion to do that. And that'll come back later on when we do these types of drop 2 chords. They use a similar fingering. So I am putting that note there. You can use your ring finger if you like. Last line of the top guitar, starting off with E, D, E, F, E, F, G, F, E, D, C. So I'm going to put on my metronome for 80 beats per minute. That's a pretty comfortable clip for this. And let's just play, if you can, that top guitar line with me. So 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so second guitar is going to start off on those ledger lines. So it's a very similar thing there. We have the C, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. So this is why they call it imitation duet. It's going to be doing the exact same thing in each section. Basically, you're just doing it at a staggered place in the song. So once we reach that F, E, D, C, there's the B, playing that F with my pinky again, E, D, E, F, G, F, E, D, C. Going to the third line here, E, D, E, F, E, F, G, B, C, D, F, A, B, C, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, F, E, D, B, C. All right. So you might have to watch this section of the video a couple of times, but this is not a incredibly challenging piece to play, but it is something that will help you practice those lower ledger lines and kind of get us back into the habit of doing the sight reading. I know for some of you, perhaps you have taken a few weeks off of this. If that is you, the little pain you feel of getting back into it, that's just your reminder to practice this every day. Even if it's for only a couple of minutes, I always recommend go back to page 4 of the book and just read as far as you can. I like to basically go through this every day, have something that I can read every single day. It's a really good thing to be doing. So let's play that second guitar part. I'm going to start again, same tempo. This is at 80. And here we go, second guitar. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, next we're going to talk about caged and arpeggios. For the next 5 weeks, I'm going to be giving you one caged shape and one arpeggio to practice for each of those weeks. So we have 12 chromatic pitches, and so we're going to have 60 caged chords and 60 arpeggios at the end of these 5 weeks. These are going to be the basis for everything else that you learn in the intermediate course, and it's a really good foundation for learning songs. There's a lot of these arpeggios. I'm giving you the ones that are most commonly found in songs. I'm not going to be giving you anything that you're not going to use for a long time. These are going to be applicable immediately. Okay, so let's start off with caged. What is caged? Well, I have a number of different videos out on caged, so if you want a more in-depth, like intermediate level take on that, you can certainly look into those videos. But caged is essentially different places we can play the same chord. These aren't necessarily inversions, although a couple of them are. These are what we would call a voicing. An inversion of a chord, such as this C major. So this has the E in the bottom, the G on top. That has the G in the bottom and the B on top. That has the B in the bottom, the C on top. This is the C in the bottom and the E on top. Those are inversions. They take the notes and they kind of scramble them around. They always start on a different pitch. Whereas the caged chords are what we call voicings. There's only one of these that's really an inversion of the other ones. But what happens in caged is you're allowed to play the exact same chord in multiple locations. This has a lot of benefits. For example, maybe you're playing in a 2-guitar band. One person's playing down here. So maybe you can play up here and it thickens the tone. You both have a different register where you're playing something. Another benefit might be there's a fill there that you want. Maybe I'm playing a chord here or here, 2 chords that you already know, and you want to fill behind the singer. Well, both of those places don't have the best access to scales that are easy to play, whereas this one, It does. And so I might use a different version, a different voicing of the chord so that I can use a different type of fill. So there are different places that I might want to play them. Others, such as this, the C over E, is a very common structure. This is a slash chord. Have you ever heard this? A walk down is what I'm talking about. So Let It Be by the Beatles has this thing. See that little walk down thing that I did there? That includes a slash chord. These are very common in pop, rock, and especially in worship. These are ways that we can kind of add to the chord by creating different movements within it. So for example, let's just say I had something boring like C to D. Using inversions, I can do this. So I'm just growing the chord by using these slash voicings. Very helpful. They're a way for us to kind of do different walk downs and that type of thing. So very important. But I will say when we finally get to that particular chord, which will probably be the last one we do, so it'll be in 4 or 5 weeks, pay careful attention to that one because it is really important and it's used all the time. So back to today's caged voicing. We're only going to do one for today, and you already know it. It looks like this. That's right. The C form of caged is just C. Each one of the chords in the word caged is represented by that particular chord. So C, it looks like a C. All look like a C with a capo on. The A looks like an A chord would with a capo. The G looks like a G chord but with a capo. The E looks like an E chord but with a capo. And the D looks like a D chord but with a capo. So these are movable voicings, and you will actually be playing the guitar more like this than you ever have done anything else. Most of the songs you hear on the radio, most of the songs coming out of LA and Nashville and New York are using these types of voicings. So, how do we play this first one? Okay. Play a C chord for me, and then I want you to put your pinky where your ring finger was, put your ring finger where your middle finger was, and put your middle finger where your first finger was. This allows our first finger to be available. Now we're going to move that up 1 fret, and then you're going to take that first finger and you're going to bar it over the top 4th string. This is the C form of caged. And the way that I like to share this information is, in this case, this looks like a C chord, but it sounds like a D flat major, or a C sharp major, whatever you prefer. Now if I move it up again, now it looks like a C major, but it sounds like a D. That's that chord, okay? Move it up again. Now it sounds like an E flat major, but it looks like a C. Sounds like an E, but looks like a C. Sounds like an F, but looks like a C. Sounds like an F sharp, looks like a C. You get the idea. So this shape can be moved to all the different pitches. So you can probably tell where I'm going to go with this. Cycle 4. To get the C version, I have to go way up here. So C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, F sharp, B, E, A, D, G. I want you to practice this chord cycle 4. C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, F sharp, B, E, A, D, G. For a lot of you, this is not going to be very comfortable in the beginning, but this chord is essential. There's no getting around this chord at this point. You're in too deep already. You have to get this chord down. So we're going to learn this chord just the same way we did all the beginner chords. What I want you to do is start from the thickest string. Don't do the bar first. Start from the thickest string and build that chord on the way up. Okay, I prefer to do this on a D because it's not too close to the nut and it's just a comfortable place to play it. Then you're going to play the chord by making sure every single note rings out clearly. And you take your hand off and you try again. I remember very vividly doing this. This is actually where I learned to do this from. When I finally started playing in bands and doing actual gigs and playing, like top 40 and dance music and stuff like that, I started realizing this chord was everywhere. It was in all the different music that was being played at those weddings and those dances. So I wasn't that familiar with it because coming from a blues and a rock background, we didn't really use that chord that much. And so I had to woodshed it, just like you're going to. And so I played it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Now, one of the ways that people teach CAGED incorrectly is they only give you one scale that goes with it. So, for example, if I'm playing the C form of D major, which is right here, so it looks like a C, sounds like a D, I have a scale that goes with that, which would be D major. So, now that you've passed the week 40 exam, you can tell me which pattern of D major would be in this location. And you'd be right if you said pattern 3. That is the correct fingering for the D major scale. And you're actually going to see this chord shape inside that pattern. Take a look at that pattern, diagram it out on some fretboard paper, and you'll actually see the chord we're talking about inside that pattern. In fact, what I like to do is when I'm playing the pattern, I'll say there when I notice one of the chord tones, like this. There, 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 there. That way, I can really pay attention to the chord inside of the scale form. This is really important because once we get into improvising in a more complicated way over chord changes, you have to be really, really cognizant of these different chords inside of the scales and vice versa. That way you can pick out the money notes. All of our favorite players, everyone from Steve Lukather to Larry Carlton, when they're playing over pop tunes and they're playing those money solos where every single note seems appropriate and perfect, this is what they're doing. They're picking the most perfect note out of that chord and applying it in their improvisation. They're not really thinking scales at that point. They're thinking past that. They're thinking into what are the chord tones. Okay, now you know at this point that D major isn't just in the key of D. This is a D major scale as if D is the 1 chord, but D can also be the 4 chord. This is where all these CAGED courses start getting this wrong. They only give you one scale. You need 3 because D major can be the 1 chord in the key of D, it can be the 4 chord in the key of A, and it can be the 5 chord in the key of G. Proving this, if I play my A major scale in this location, which, after passing week 40, you know is pattern 6, you are going to see that same D major chord in there because it would have to be. If D major is part of the D major key, you're going to see it in the scale. If D major is part of the A major system, you're going to see it in the scale. Check it out. There, 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 there. It's in there because D major is a part of A major. Next, D major is a part of G major. So if I play a G major scale in that location, and you'd be right if you said it's pattern 7, good job for you, you're going to notice that D major is inside of that system as well. There, 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 there. So we have to learn 3 scales to match with our CAGED voicing. D major, A major, G major. And if you can do this for each one of our CAGED shapes, then you will have a full understanding of what CAGED actually does. Because I may use a D major chord in any of these 3 keys. And so I have to be prepared to use a fill. For example, let's just say I'm in the key of G major. I have to be able to do that. But what if I'm in the key of A? Or what if I'm in the key of D? I'm going to approach my fills differently with a different scale depending on what the function of that key is and its association with the chord. Hopefully that makes sense. So for this week, your caged voicing is going to be the C form, okay? And you can move that all over the neck, and I want you to apply those three shapes. If this chord is the 1 chord, you're going to be using pattern 3 in this location. If this chord is the 4 chord, you're going to be using pattern 6 in this location. And if this chord is the 5 chord, you're going to be using pattern 7 in this location. All right, one last thing to cover in our lesson today is going to be our first arpeggio. Now, triads are 3-note structures. Arpeggios, at least in modern music, are 4-note structures. They're based on a 7th chord. And we're going to be getting into 7th chords a little bit later on. But first of all, it's going to be inside of our little caged form that we already showed you. Awesome, perfect, right? So start on your D tone with your pinky, and then you're going to play F sharp, which is the 3rd, and you're going to play the A note, which is going to be our perfect 5th, and then the C sharp, which is going to be our major 7th. You can complete it with that note right there. Now, we do have other occurrences of those pitches in the whole pattern there. So, if I go down here, I have another A and another F sharp. There's another F sharp and another A. Okay, so that is our first arpeggio, the major 7th. How many arpeggios did I just show you? 12, right? Exactly. So, C major 7, F major 7, B flat major 7, E flat major, you get the idea, right? You're going to go through all of those a cycle 4, and you're going to have 12 of those major 7 arpeggios, okay? All right, that's an awful lot of stuff for this week, but we have a lot of stuff to get to before the end of the year. All right, well, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next week for week 42 of the Guitar in a Year. Have a great day. Peace.